My son hadn't spoken a word in 3 weeks, not to me, not to the nurses, not to the therapist who charged more per hour than some people make in a month. Then a 12-year-old kid I'd never met walked past my security, past the nanny, past the interpreter with the perfect credentials, and knelt on the carpet like he'd been invited. He didn't say a thing, he raised his hands and signed one question, and my son stopped crying, like a storm that ran out of rain. If it were you, what would you have done? I'm William Bennett, and you can Google whatever labels come with my name. The board seats, the glass tower, the suit that costs too much to wrinkle. But none of that meant anything in the doorway of my own house while my 7-year-old Noah sat in the corner of his playroom, shaking with silent sobs. We had doctors. We had a child psychologist. We had a specialist in deaf grief and trauma. We had an interpreter who signed with crisp, careful hands, and still nothing. Noah's fingers moved fast, frantic like he was trying to lasso air, and no one in that 30-room museum of a home could understand him. That kind of helplessness, it steals your breath, and the worst part is it keeps stealing it every hour on the hour until you forget what normal used to feel like. The day Patricia started was supposed to be a reset. New housekeeper, respectful, polite, the kind of person who has learned to be invisible so rent gets paid. She brought her son Jamal, a 12-year-old, who scanned the room the way kids who grew up with less learn to do, noticing exits, reading faces, sensing where the power sits. I nodded, thanked them, rattled off rules like I was in control, and pretended I didn't feel that text buzzing in my pocket again. Same message as always, he's crying. Jamal heard it too, not the phone, the crying. He tilted his head like a compass, finding north, and before his mother could whisper, "Please, baby, I need this job," he was already moving. He slipped down the hall past the interpreter, whose jaw was locked in professional frustration, past the therapist with 3 frames on their wall, and none of them on the floor where my kid needed them, and he walked straight into Noah's storm. He didn't ask anyone's permission. He didn't announce himself. He just lowered himself to Noah's level and signed a simple question. "Why are you sad?" Silence, the kind that makes your bones ache. And then everything changed. Noah's hands exploded into motion, tears flying off his cheeks, and even this kid who could really sign had to focus to keep up. "You see me, you hear me, someone hears me." It wasn't the interpreter who answered back. It was Jamal, his face moving with his hands, not robotic, not recited, but alive. He signed the way my wife used to sign. Sarah learned American Sign Language before Noah was born. That woman could love you in advance of your needs. You know what I mean? Like she was always leaving light for you in rooms she hadn't even entered yet. After we lost her in a car accident 6 months before all this, I packed away the videos she made for him, the ones where she looked right into the camera and told our boy the world would still hold him when she couldn't. I told myself it was for his own good, that he needed less sadness, not more. I told myself a lot of things that sounded like protection and felt like fear. Noah signed the truth I didn't want to hear. He wanted Mommy's videos. He was forgetting how her hands moved. He was forgetting her. That sentence cracked something in me I thought money had welded shut. Jamal's eyes went wide at another sign, and he looked at me, then at the doctor I'd called, who finally arrived with a bag full of instruments and none of the words we needed. His chest hurts, Jamal signed it hurts when he breathes deep. The doctor examined him while Jamal translated every question and every answer. And when the diagnosis came back as anxiety-driven chest pain with a warning that unspoken symptoms can harden into something harder to treat, the doctor said, "A thing I have not forgotten, this boy may have saved your son's life." Pattern interrupt because let's be clear, a 12-year-old did what our experts couldn't, so I made a choice. "Patricia, your son did more for Noah in 5 minutes than I've managed in 6 months. I want him here every day after school. I'll pay him, and I'm promoting you from housekeeper to household manager because clearly the most valuable thing in this house isn't marble, it's people who listen." Jamal looked at his mother, then at Noah, who was signing. "Please stay like a heartbeat." He nodded once, then turned to me. "I'll teach you," he said out loud while he signed to Noah. "Real sign language, not just the words, the language, because there's a difference." It became our ritual before the market opened, at the same kitchen table where 1,000 deals had been sketched on napkins. I sat while a 12-year-old taught me how to talk to my own son. Not just the hand shapes, the eyebrows that carry questions, the mouth that adds tone, the rhythm that says, "I'm with you, not ahead of you." Jamal kept saying my friend Maya taught me like this. She's deaf, she says, hearing people learn the signs and forget to learn the language. He made me practice until my hands ached and my pride softened. And when I walked into meetings afterward, I felt like speaking any language without love is just noise. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. The safe was behind quarterly reports and stock certificates I used to think were the proof I was a responsible man. I opened it with hands that shook like a rookie and took out the drive with Sarah's videos, and I swear to you, that living room held its breath when her face touched the screen. She signed slowly, lovingly, like each movement stitched Noah's heart back together, and Jamal sat with my son in his lap and voiced her words so I could follow along like a guest in my own home. "My sweet Noah, if you're watching this, it means Mommy had to go away, but I will always be in your hands." Noah turned to me with a trembling smile and signed, "She's still here in my hands. Why did you hide her?" There are questions that remove all your titles and leave you with who you are, and that was one of them. I dropped to my knees and asked Jamal how to say I'm sorry. He guided my hands through the shape of it, and even though it was clumsy and late, it was real and Noah understood, and when he pulled me close, the house changed temperature. It wasn't perfect. It was honest. That mattered more. You'd think the credits could roll there, lesson learned, everyone healed. Not quite. Grief is messy, learning is slower than you want, and pride has a way of testing you right when you think you've got it handled. That night, Noah woke up thrashing, signing in his sleep about the accident. The old panic crawled up my ribs, but I went to him with my hands, not my wallet. "You're safe," I signed. "I'm here, Mommy loves you." My fingers were slow but steady. Noah opened his eyes, watched me, and something in him unclenched. "You can hear me now," he signed. "I'm learning," I signed back. He nodded and fell asleep with his hand in mine. Do you think that's fair, a kid having to wait months for his dad to learn his language? I ask myself that a lot. You can tell me in the comments and I'll read every one. Breakfast brought a different kind of test, my sister Caroline walking in, like a judge who already knew the verdict. She clocked Jamal teaching Noah a sign language joke and gave me that look I've seen 1,000 times when wealth thinks it buys decency. "Who is this, the help's child? William, you cannot be serious having staff sit at the table." I didn't say a word, Noah did. He stood on his chair and signed at a speed that made even Jamal blink. Jamal glanced at me to ask if he should voice it. I nodded. "He says you're being mean and rude." Jamal relayed, "He says Jamal and Patricia are family, and if you can't be kind to his family, you should leave." I backed my son. Caroline left in a cloud of perfume and disapproval, and the kitchen got brighter without anyone turning on the lights. But the twist wasn't inside my house. It was at Noah's new school, the expensive one that marketed itself as a haven for deaf children. The message came in the afternoon. There'd been an incident, older boys using sign to bully younger kids because it stays invisible if the adults don't really know the language. They told Noah his signing was weird, that he signed like a hearing person, and he came home with his shoulders up and his hands hidden, shame heavier than his backpack. Jamal sat beside him and signed slow, the way you talk to a friend. You know what Maya told me? There's no wrong way to communicate. There are different ways, and you speak too, the way your mom taught you and the way I taught you, that makes you bilingual. In sign, that's not weird, that's powerful. I watched a 12-year-old dismantle a lie that a system had let grow, and I knew what I had to do next. I called a meeting, not a staff meeting, a family meeting. Patricia, Jamal, Noah, me. I signed while I talked so Noah wasn't the last to know about his own life, and I said, I've been thinking about what makes a family. It isn't blood or money or the way last names look in the society pages. It's who shows up, it's who learns your language, it's who refuses to let you be invisible in your own home. I took out papers and told Patricia and Jamal I wanted them named as Noah's legal guardians if anything happened to me, and more than that, if they would have us, I wanted to adopt them into our family. Patricia covered her mouth. Jamal stared at Noah, who signed, yes, 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 like a drumline. And then Patricia said something honest, Mr. Bennett. We don't fit in your world. No, I told her I don't fit in that world anymore either. I want the world we built right here at this table where everyone has a voice. Here's where the story flips again, because the school we were paying a small fortune to did not love the idea that family members should be required to learn alongside their kids. They preferred polished programs where learning happened on their schedule, not ours. Respectfully, we left. Jamal dug up a public school with an inclusive program that made space for kids to be kids, deaf and hearing, learning together, hands and eyes and faces all in the conversation. We funded what they needed, sure, but we showed up too, and that mattered more than the check. 6 months later, at Noah's 8th birthday, our backyard was a chorus, kids signing jokes and telling stories with their hands, while their voices rose and fell like any other party. Maya came and taught games where rhythm mattered more than volume. Adults learned to listen with their eyes. And when Noah stood on a bench to give a speech, he signed while Jamal voiced for him, I thought I was broken. I thought I was alone. Then my brother came, and he taught my dad to see me, and he gave me my voice back. We waved our hands in deaf applause, which, if you've never seen it, is one of the purest things on earth. 5 years later, Jamal stood at a podium in a cap and gown and gave a valedictorian speech in 2 languages at once, hands and voice, because that's who he is, a bridge that refuses to let people fall. When I was 12, he said I met a 7-year-old who thought no one could hear him. He taught me that everyone has a voice if we learn to listen. Noah stood in his seat and signed, that's my brother, and the whole auditorium laughed and applauded with their hands. We launched the Bennett Foundation for Deaf Education at our kitchen table after that. Not because I wanted my name on something, but because the question Jamal asked me wouldn't leave me alone. What if every family had access to the language their kids use, to live not as charity, not as an elective, but as a right? We built classes taught with deaf mentors at the center. We partnered with schools. We kept the door open for anyone who needed a place to practice being understood. 10,000 families later, I can tell you the world bends when enough people learn to listen. Today, there's a brick building on the same block where Patricia used to catch 2 buses, a clinic with 2 names on the door, Dr. Jamal Coleman and Dr. Noah Bennett. They treat deaf kids and their families. They treat bodies and minds. They write prescriptions for speech or silence or sign depending on what the child needs. They keep the waiting room stocked with picture books and patients, and some days I sit there like any other dad, because even now, learning doesn't stop. A few weeks ago, a little boy came in with a father who loved him like fear flinching at every sound he didn't understand, and Jamal knelt the same way he did on my rug years ago and signed, "Why are you sad?" And when the boy lifted his hands, The room rearranged itself to make space for his answer. On the sidewalk after the dad grabbed my arm and said, "I thought I had to fix him. Turns out I had to fix me." Yeah, that happened. So here's where I want to leave you, not with a bow on top, but with a question that might start a fight in the best way. Should schools be required to teach families the language their children actually use to communicate, whether that's sign or AAC or anything else with public funding that treats it like math textbooks and bus routes? Not an extra, not a luxury, and should interpreters be required to train with deaf mentors so they learn the culture, not just the vocabulary? Or is that a family responsibility no government can enforce? Do you think that's fair? Because I failed my son before I learned him. I hid the light because I couldn't handle how much it hurt to look straight at it. I hired people to bridge a gap I was too proud and too scared to cross. What changed us wasn't a breakthrough at a whiteboard or an invoice paid in full. It was a 12-year-old who walked into a room full of adults and spoke the language of compassion without asking permission. He listened. He taught me to listen. He gave me my boy back, and he gave my boy his dad back, which is a gift I'll be paying forward for the rest of my life. If it were you, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments. Argue with me. Tell me what your school did right or wrong. Tell me what your family learned the hard way. And if this hit something in your chest, hit subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to be heard, and write the words you wish someone had signed to you when you were a kid. I'll be there trying to answer with my whole heart, not just my hands.